You're listening to Biz-Souls, the business podcast with an edge, hosted by me, Rona and Jeffrey Hansler. Tune in for perspectives and discoveries about the changing world of business. It's time to connect to the heart, soul, and humor of how business gets done. And off we go, Jeffrey. It's time for another podcast.
It's time for another podcast. Welcome to Biz-Souls. We get to the heart and soul of business and the people who make it happen. Rona, what are we talking about today?
One of my favorite 2 or 3 subjects, because today's all about creativity.
Love creativity. We're very, very happy to be doing creativity. And besides doing it just because it's an interesting topic, look, we're trying to still find our voice in what we do. As you can see, we always change a few things around. And Rona has mentioned very kindly in a gentle way that I'm a little stiff because I want to get my facts and my figures.
Yeah, and I just want him to loosen up a little bit, and so maybe serious is a better term because you're
stiff. Okay,
very, stiff.
Yeah.
And one of I'm a creativity and play coach. I mean, this is what I love to do, and it's the first step in the innovation, can I say that again? Innovative thinking process. And people often equate them as, the same thing. And, I want you to be looser, and I think that'll work your creativity too, So.
How am I doing now? Well, we'll see how it goes. We'll see. You guys can be the judge as things go on.
And that's fine. And you do have an amazing sense of humor. And yes, we will find our voice.
Yes. And speaking of finding our voice.
Speaking of.
Just think of this as like Ryan Reynolds in Green Lantern.
Do I have to? And I love Ryan Reynolds. He is one of the handsomest, funniest stars out there.
Well, he's definitely pushing the thing. And Green Lantern just didn't make it.
No,
and then Deadpool did. So somewhere in between, he found his voice. So Ryan, if you're listening, and I hope you are, please give us a call and you can tell us about your journey to finding your voice.
We are all ready to send you a Zoom invite, Ryan, because I'm sure we're your first priority.
I don't know. I'm almost terrified of that. That would be very interesting. He's a sharp dude.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
So anyway, talking about creativity overall, people get scared of the word creative and being creative. And the fact is that everyone is creative. The issue lies when, and this is not true for everyone, a lot of people translate the word creative to mean artistic talent. Just because you can't draw or play the piano or whatever does not mean you're not creative. There's so many avenues of creativity to be had in every, if you can think, you're creative.
Oh, well, then I qualify because I can't draw and I can't play the piano.
Yeah.
And
there you go.
Oh, I can't think, though, either. So, no, anyway.
We're done. Thanks for stopping by.
So, the thing is managers and leaders need to build innovation into their company and their organization. And what people do is they think, especially often, sometimes people,
we never mean absolutes when we say
Yeah, exactly. Even though we say absolutes, we don't mean it. We're only kidding. No.
So don't pay attention to anything we say in this podcast.
Look, there's information, there's knowledge, and knowledge only comes from purposeful practice.
Right.
You've got to be dedicated, and you look for what you want to keep, and you look for what you want to get rid of, and it takes time. I am not worried about the fact that we're into session number 12, and we're still working on finding our voice. I think that's very noisy. It's like
I have my voice. I'm teasing.
And with the success we're having, maybe we're like Star Trek. They're going to cancel us, and then they're going to bring us back. Who knows?
I'll be on the CW with another show any minute.
I'm sure you will. You do great on The Voice. You'd be absolutely wonderful.
So, yeah, purposeful anything. I work with purposeful play. And because there's a method to the madness. And when there's a purposeful practice towards creative thinking, it increases the awareness of how to do it and when it comes in,
Absolutely. Purposeful practice is key to that.
Yeah.
And before we get into our program, let's talk a little bit about innovation, which is the end result. I mean, creativity in business, just coming up with creative ideas, that's not what business is about. Business is about making changes and be able to implement that creativity. And it does take the form of innovation, and they're two different processes.
Absolutely. And, it's one is part of the other.
They're definitely connected.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Whoops.
As I throw,
He's throwing his notes around. It's frightening.
That's right. I'm trying to make
getting
a point
out of
on
his
that.
way. And you wanted to make a point about
Stats.
Yeah,
Stats. Got to have stats.
Yeah, that's true. That is, you love stats.
I
and
do.
things like
I do.
that.
There should be a basis of science in what we're talking about rather than just opinion. Kind of like
There is. I just, I like to talk about them instead of listing them, and we've compromised and we kind of do both.
Right.
And speaking of which, and storytelling is a part of that. And did you want to tell a story about ATD?
Yeah, ATD, Association for Talent Development, for those people who are not familiar. We're a worldwide organization. It used to be called the American Society of Training and Development, and then they switched their name to Association of Talent Development. And they did a survey in 2016, and then they repeated the survey, or somewhat repeated it, in 2020.
They just asked around in 2020. They didn't really
And
do a
they
survey.
were expecting, and they interviewed CEOs from a variety of companies, quite a large number, as I understand. And they were expecting that the most important thing CEOs would say would be ROI, which is a little bit of bias in it, and we may get into that a little later. What they got back though is CEOs want innovative thinking in their organization, because they need to have, in this highly competitive global marketplace, you've got to have innovation.
Yeah, and if you read Inc. magazine, if you read Fast Company, if you read Forbes, all of which I do, innovation is they write about it all the time, and they've spoken to and interviewed CEOs who say that it's paramount for them to keep their business going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it, in a way, it parallels
Or paralyzes.
whichever you do. It parallels what went on during the Industrial Revolution after the Civil War in the United States. We had massive change here. We had people coming up with new products, new ideas. They were combining different technologies to get things done, and that's exactly what we're doing now.
And that's what innovation is. We'll get to our definitions in a second, and overall that fits right into the definition of innovation.
Can I go back to my facts?
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It
'Cause
was
he
my
knows-
fault.
I know.
So
he
look,
digressed. Oh no!
I digressed. I was practicing.
Yes.
How'd I do?
Excellent.
The International Organization for Standardization, which is ISO, which is interesting. You would think it'd be iOS, except I think that acronym was used by another
Somebody
group.
else, so.
Yeah, so they had to do ISO. Anyway, it's an international standard-setting body composed of representatives from various national standards organizations from around the world. And the organization was started in 1947, and of late, it's getting more and more attention. It's headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland, the country my father came from, of which I still get to be a citizen, which is great.
But he digresses.
And
once again.
it works. The standards are used in 165 countries, maybe one or two less now with what's going on in the Ukraine. Who knows? Anyway,
What's your point?
in 2020, one ISO standard definition defines innovation as a new or changed entity realizing or redistributing value.
And that's actually a little vague.
Yeah.
Probably purposefully so.
So Wikipedia defines innovation as a practical implementation of ideas that result in the introduction of new goods or services or improvement in the offering of goods or services.
And the first step is?
The first step of innovation is creativity. That's where all these ideas are going to come up.
That's right. And thank you for being so serious with your facts and data.
I was trying to be a little less serious than
You
than
did a
normal.
wonderful job and imparted great information. I'm sure everyone is riveted right now.
I know. I do like a grinding in science. Yeah, a grounding in science.
Good.
We're doing great.
Something like that.
So what do you think creativity is, Rona?
But when I give
your
my programs on creativity and stress and all that, one of the points that I make is creativity in its essence is coming up with something when there was nothing there to begin with. And it begins the process of everything. You cannot have anything without creating it. Boom, mic drop, we're done.
Okay.
Sorry. But it is. I mean, it can be mechanization, automation, any kind of technology. And yes, artistic endeavors are, the obvious answer. Any kind of process change, redistribution of resources, all those things, you need creativity to start it.
Right, right. That's interesting you mentioned art. Art does enhance, it adds value to society. And yet there's, art is completely different from the business of art, which is a very tough business. I don't know how people do that.
It is. And stop to think about all the new ways that art is made now with technology, with mechanization to make it easier, to make giant sculptures that are so much different than what they did during the Renaissance. I don't think the statue of David was, made the same way that people are, making sculptures now,
I don't know about that. We're going to probably get cards and letters on that one, that's for sure. So my perspective on, did you want to say anything or
Nope.
No, okay. My perspective on creativity is that it's an imaginative thinking unconcerned with practicality. Creativity is a fanciful idea based on desires and wants. I think that's one of the greatest things you can do with creativity. Innovation then adds value to people, organizations, society by turning creative fantasy into reality by applying current knowledge, process, systems from anywhere and everywhere to fill the gaps interfering with the desired result. It took me a while to write that down.
Making this simpler, innovation is taking something created and improving it and implementing implementing it. It's a lot of times makes something that is created better.
Correct. So we know creativity is linked to innovation, and innovation is linked to creativity. What's one of the misnomers that happens, though, Rona?
Well, I think that. Well, gosh, I don't even know where to start on this. There's, it's one. You can have.
Are they the same process?
No.
They're different processes.
No, totally different, because you can have, goods that have mills that are created, and then you can have employees working on ways to cut expenses to make the process faster. We were just watching on the History Channel about making cereals and the food that made America. And if you look at who was the one that put electricity in first, I don't know. He made cereal. No, that's right. Heinz. Ketchup. And he created different ways to make the process easier. And Kellogg took the flakes and figured out a way to make them quicker so he could package them. And so that's, to me, what the creativity is coming up with the flakes. The innovation is getting them out to people faster.
Okay, we need to feed Rona because she's obviously hungry. She's
I like
thinking
food.
about food.
I went to culinary school.
We're going to cover this, and we're going to cover this in that subject in a little more detail at a later time.
Yeah.
Look, I think the confusion comes up with these incremental improvements. So what happens is somebody comes up with an innovative idea, and then people, the telephone, innovative idea, and then it starts changing shape. They make it simpler, and finally they got the handsets. Now you got a basic green phone that GTE used to give out. And then somebody said, well, why don't you make Princess phones or other phones? They're innovative, they're creative and innovative at the same time. Only it's incremental. And I think that's what sets people up to confuse the two processes. Mm-hmm. So what we really want to do is we want to talk about creativity today.
Right. And I have a really good quote that I got from Tom Kelly, who's an IDEO partner, and he's the author of The Art of Innovation. And he says, if you acknowledge that creative thoughts are the engine that drives innovation, can I say that again? Creativity suddenly becomes very important. And the scariest part of anything, Ernest Hemingway once said the thing that scared him the most was a blank sheet of paper, because the start of anything creative is really scary, because you're starting with nothing, And so that's, I think, a really important thing to realize. And there's a big meat of creative thinking that we're going to go through in a second. And I think we should talk about how to think creatively.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to finish up the thought of innovation.
Sure.
So the reason companies are interested, the reason CEOs are interested in innovation is economics and saving money, doing things faster, doing things better, getting a better product and adding value, giving them something different. And like it could be a simple idea. Simple ideas like this food company that I worked with a while. I mean, I can't tell you the name except they're a general food company and they have a lot of mills. And so, budding.
Generally speaking.
Yeah, exactly. And so they had this process that I came in while they were going through the process, and what they were doing is they were trying to figure out how to save money, and because of the FDA, they had to seal these drums carrying these food ingredients every single night, and they'd been sealing them with 4 welds on them at the time. And what they wanted to do is one guy suggested, why don't you only do 3 welds? It holds just as well, and that ended up saving like $300,000 or $400,000. So innovation is where we want to end. We want to start with creativity. And so the title of this section is Start Your Engines, How to Think Creatively.
Yeah, and we got that from the Tom Kelly, because they're engines that drive innovation. So we're going with car metaphors.
That's right.
Vroom, vroom.
Vroom, vroom.
So
excellent.
So yes, where you want to start?
Drugs.
Awesome. We got to go. Okay.
No drugs.
No drugs. All right. So what do you mean?
Look, the Ryan Reynolds thing got me to thinking. So it put me into movie mode.
Okay.
And then all of these lines came up from movies that they popped up. Like, remember Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Of course.
Yeah, Matthew Broderick was there. Well, Charlie Sheen was in.
He was there.
Yeah. And one of the scenes toward the end, was Charlie Sheen's in there. And Bueller's sister asked him, I can't remember her name right now, asked him.
It's okay.
What? Oh, she asked him, so what are you here for? And his answer was...
Drugs.
Drugs.
Okay.
Now, which also brought to mind Dazed and Confused.
So he was on a stream of consciousness.
I was. And that's actually called divergent thinking. And Rona's going to tell us more about it.
It kind of isn't, but it isn't. And not that I'm judging, because divergent thinking means non-judgment. And what does all this have to do with creativity?
Well, just to finish the thought, Rory Cochrane, as Ron Slater, the big stoner, was always coming up with ideas. And what does this have to do with creativity? Well, about within the last decade, the government re-allowed testing on hallucinogens.
That's right.
LSD, marijuana, ayahuasca. What are the other ones?
I don't know.
Peyote and marijuana. Or did I already say marijuana?
Did you say magic mushrooms?
Magic mushrooms, yeah. And what they found is...
we've just heard about these.
Never
tried any of them, just heard about them.
I read this in an article.
Right.
Okay.
Science article. Go ahead.
Exactly. So what they found is what Freud used to refer to the ego, they now call the natural neural network, and that is the control center of the brain, and it prevents the other parts of the brain talking to each other. And the natural neural network doesn't like it. It wants status quo. It wants things to be the same. And it does all kinds of things to resist change. And what they found is if they give these drugs to somebody, it inhibits the natural neural network, allowing the other parts of the brain to talk to each other. Right. And because they can talk to each other, they've had some radical results. For example, somebody who'd been smoking for like 40 years was able to give it up overnight, and no real physical symptoms.
Really?
Same with alcohol. And
that's impressive.
And the most exciting thing is personal trauma, PTSD, other personal traumas people. They've been able to resolve those issues by allowing the other parts of their brain to. And so it's fascinating.
And all of these things come from nature. Nature is wonderful.
It is wonderful. So therefore, we started with drugs.
Yes. And I have to add, we obviously can't do drugs at work, unless, as long as people don't find out.
Yeah, exactly. Talk to all the companies that are doing drug testing to make sure insurance rates go down.
And the fact is, alcohol is a form of drugs. And I don't know about you, and this is full disclosure, I've had awesome ideas after I've had a drink or two. I'm at 110 pounds. I can only do 2 drinks. And it's led to many napkin ideas. Give me a napkin. Yeah. So who has a pen? And I've gotten great ideas because it does, in fact, loosen you up.
Yeah. Compact computer, which no longer exists.
Has alcohol in it?
Their whole advertising campaign is they started on a napkin.
During happy hour?
Probably during happy hour. They're out, it could be a TGIF or something like that. Who knows? All right.
Okay.
So where do we go next?
Well, you made an excellent point about purposeful practices, and they're designed to get everyone past their initial fear.
Right.
So, and that is indeed easier when you get into the child's mind. And this is another thing that I talk about with play. You cannot be creative if you're not playing. And that's, that you've been in companies, or perhaps you've been involved with someone who says, oh, that's a good idea, go play with it.
Right.
Ta-da. And that's where creativity comes in. And when you're in your child mind, you give up judgment. If you see kids play, they don't judge. They don't care what kind of shoes you're wearing, or what the brand name is, or what color your skin is. They just want to have fun. And that's how they make discoveries and try new things without fear of failure, because failure just means you try something else,
Right.
And that's really where you need to be. And when you were talking about the Ryan Reynolds references, you were in your child mind because you were playing with it. You had a great time with it,
Absolutely.
So it's getting over your self-consciousness and self-talk, and the Jewish mother in your head who says to you, really? That's what you're wearing? Put on a sweater, I'm cold. Sit up straight, don't slurp your soup. I got a million of them. And being okay with trying things because it's fun.
Right. Well, meditation is another way of doing this. It's an idea of getting kind of control of your mind, that child mind. With play and with creativity practice, we can begin to call up that child mind, or that meditative mind state where you're reducing that judgment, so that we can come up with creative ideas that can lead to great innovation.
Yeah, I meditate most mornings for anywhere between, well, sometimes I don't have a lot of time, so maybe 6 or 7 minutes. Other days it could be a good 20, 25. I usually don't do more than that, because I can sit for 3 minutes, and all of a sudden I'll get an epiphany, and I have a pencil and paper right next to me, because I don't want to get up from that alpha state where the subconscious does that incubation, and come back and sit, have to get myself in that state again. So if I just write it down, I can go back into it, and it's rocking and rolling,
Excellent. Hey, Rona, why don't you take us through some other brain processes here, and how we think, and how our different thinking is going to help us come in our creativity process.
Hey, Jeffrey, I think that's just a fantastic idea.
Yeah, I just thought of that. We didn't work on it or rehearse it
Not that
at
it's
all.
on the paper or anything.
Okay.
So basically, there are two ways of thinking that are at the crux of creative thinking. That's what I was saying before. These two things are the meat of creative thinking, and that's being divergent and convergent in your thinking. And I want to go back to our car metaphor that we were talking about earlier. If you think of a car and how you get from one place to another, you accelerate and you brake. So think of divergent thinking as when you put the accelerator on and you just throw out ideas when you're generating ideas. And the convergent is when you are actually evaluating what you've come up with. So it's divergent first and then convergent.
So what are some key principles for divergent?
There are 4 of each. When you have divergent thinking, you defer judgment.
Wait a second.
Sorry.
Defer judgment. Like my Ryan Reynolds to the Ferris Bueller,
Yeah.
to the Dazed and Confused. And Rona's going, no, I don't think it's divergent thinking. I'm just going
That's what I
with
said.
the flow.
Right. And that's what I said. Well,
We don't always practice what
I
we
judged you,
preach.
right? And that's the thing. We can do that to ourselves as well as to other people. We can think to ourselves, "Oh my God, there's this. Oh my God, no, that's a stupid idea, or it won't work." And if you write it down, especially if crap, Rona, finish the sentence. If you're working in a team, someone could feasibly take an inkling or an edge of that idea and run with it in a different direction. So defer judgment, go for quantity, throw every bit of spaghetti against that wall. And then try to make connections with what you have, and then seek novelty. This has been done, try something else. So those 4 things: defer judgment, go for quantity, make connections, and seek novelty. And these principles are all interrelated. They all work together and I'm having trouble speaking. They improve your ability to keep your mind open and explore more and more possibilities and seeing things from multiple perspectives.
So, and we're going to get into this, how companies kill ideas, and it's a natural reaction for your brain. Our brains are hardwired not to like change; they like the status quo because it's efficiency and effectiveness.
Well, and
so that's why it pops out, and it takes a lot of hard work. And Rona and I are we've got a great partnership going, and we still often snipe at each other.
Oh my God, we
things.
butt heads all the time.
Yeah. All right. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
Convergent thinking.
Convergent thinking. That's where we actually apply judgment, and we break. We slow the car down, and we look at the options that we generated to see which ones make the most sense. We analyze them. We do a focused evaluation, and we do it in an affirmative way. What are the possibilities? Can this possibly work? Not judging without thinking about it. This sucks. This is not a good idea, and try to think of novel alternatives. So
wait, like the going with the car analogy.
Yeah.
It's like if you need gas now, we slow down as we're driving, and we look for something that's under $8 a gallon in gas or something. So we start looking around, and that's what convergent thinking is, where you're starting to evaluate what are we going to do next, and how are we going to
what makes the most sense for our business, or for what we want to do, how we can change it, and et cetera, et cetera. So 4 key principles for convergent thinking. Apply affirmative judgment, which is not throwing somebody under the bus for no reason. It's like non-judgmental judgment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's got to be hard to work on.
It is, because we are, like I said, we're hardwired to judge all the time. And non-judgmental judgment is taking the person who figured it out, or the seemingly nonsensical connection, and seeing if there is a true connection with it. And then you want to, you want to keep the novelty alive. You want to stay focused on the end result, and you want to check your objectives. Are you doing this to start something new? Are you doing this to make a product better? Are you doing this to break into another market? So all these things have to be taken into consideration when you go from idea generation to honing it to things that make sense for the next step.
Affirmative judgment. So, that could be expressed in tone, instead of really, you're wearing that, to really, you're wearing that. So that would change the context a little. It's judgment. It brings up the subject. Now, is that it?
Yes, and that could, if you said that to someone, they could be, really? You like this outfit? I'm going to add this purple hat. Because
does this dress make me look? Never mind. We won't go down that road.
Creative. Does it make me look creative? And I want to talk about another fun fact that a lot of people don't know, because this is actually really related to innovation. You can be creative in 2 different ways: revolutionary and evolutionary. So revolutionary means to invent something totally new, and evolutionary is taking something that exists and making it better, which is much more closely tied, is that correct English, with innovation. So you mentioned the phone.
Right.
So that's evolutionary creativity.
Alexander Graham Bell inventing the phone, that was evolutionary.
Right. And then you get really innovative with your favorite guy.
Right. And in between, Steve Jobs. No, that was revolutionary with Alexander Graham Bell.
Correct.
And then evolutionary is the Princess phone, because it was still hardwired. It was still in the basic technology. And then Jobs comes along.
Yeah, and makes a giant leap.
So he goes back to evolutionary again.
Right.
and comes up with different ways of doing things, and it is incorporating a bunch of different technologies.
Exactly. And then as the, iPhone 37 is
Evolutionary rather than revolutionary.
Exactly.
So that'd be interesting. I wonder what the next evolutionary change is. They were thinking the watch, except you still got to have your phone to the back.
I think I'd like something implanted that we can just talk to each other.
Oh, that is going to be so weird. You just have to put
Well,
on
because
like a tattoo or
anyone
something.
who's gotten a shot has nanotechnology in their body.
That's right. That's right. If you've had a vaccination shot, you have nanotechnology in your body.
That's right. So we're going to live forever, and we'll be able to talk to each other.
There you go.
Okay. So what's next? What do we want to talk about next?
So let's talk about different techniques for creativity.
For creative thinking?
Creative thinking.
Yeah.
So the first one, obviously, we do this all the time. People do this all the time. And
Yeah.
It is pretty natural, and it's very common in the business world. It's
Brainstorming.
Yeah.
Brainstorming. And, people, and the things, that's what people think about when they go for divergent thinking. Because you want to do it without judgment, go for the unusual and wacky and all that kind of thing. And here's the thing: there are the right ways and kind of wrong ways to do brainstorming.
Well, one of the things, it's simple things. For example, the term I use is active brainstorming.
Mm-hmm.
So active brainstorming is just like active listening. So if you're having a conversation with someone and you're not listening to them or you're not encouraging them, the conversation is a little flatter. It's not as good. The way you engage people is through active listening. Mm-hmm. Well, active brainstorming is the same thing. Active brainstorming is where you're playing off the ideas of other people rather than just here's my idea, here's my idea, here's my idea. And somebody has to lead that and manage it. We're going to talk about leaders and managers a little later.
That's a big thing. And there can be an issue with that, because if a manager or CEO or whoever comes out and says, I have this great idea, what do you guys think? Employees can be a little reticent because they're afraid of their jobs, or they want to be they're afraid to be judged, they're afraid to be thrown under the bus, so they kind of acquiesce, and that original idea, which is usually favored by the most powerful person in the room, goes, whether it's a great idea or not. And people think that brainstorming is equivalent to creative problem solving, and it's not. It's assumed that brainstorming is a free for all.
No. There's got to be there's always structure and process to things.
Right.
It's good. And there are graphic techniques as well.
Right.
So we've got a popular one that I like is mind mapping. Mm-hmm. Mind mapping is like doodling. And the concept is if you write in a linear fashion, you're going to be accessing the linear parts of your brain. And if you're writing things all over the page and doodling and making things, it forces your brain to work in a different part, the more creative part of your brain.
Right.
And the idea is you come up with new and different ideas, since you don't have overly structured.
Right. And there's actually a company that I use some of the ideas. They've been in business for a while, called Game Storming, and they teach strictly drawing for ideation, because it uses a different part of your brain to see pictures as opposed to words. And that's why Lego Serious Play, they use metaphors. You can build things, and I do this with drawing and with Play-Doh, with a lot of different things to work on ideation and metaphors to what companies are going through and what's possible. There are specific actions you can take. When you use unusual materials, it just changes the way the brain works, and it helps the brain go into that child mode, because it's so much more fun than writing stuff down.
See, and those things don't work as well for me, because they're writing the ideas down and drawing it. I'm just not connected to that as well. It was cool to watch. It's very cool to watch, especially when they speed it up and they're talking about it as they're writing quickly. It just doesn't work as much for me.
And that's why there are so many methods, because not every single one is not going to resonate with every person. It's like having, 57 million motivational speakers, and they all say basically the same thing except in a different way, and something's going to resonate with you, and so you find your creative path.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple of techniques that are very close. There's slip. Now I've got
We're both.
What
I'm
disease
catching.
do you have? Slip brain writing, which is you have index cards and you pass them to the next. You write down your idea, you pass the next person, they read your idea, and then they write their idea, and then they pass it to the next person, and then you do a round robin that way.
Right.
Then there's post-it notes where you go on the board, and the idea of that is that you'll have that creative juices flowing by you moving around, and directly related to that is called gallery. And in the gallery, it's like, a museum or a gallery
Or
of
an
paintings.
art gallery, yes.
Or an art gallery. And instead of moving the ideas around, you move the people around to different areas and have them look at different things. And sometimes then they'll bring in the Legos and stuff. What does this look like?
Well, and that's exactly what we do with the Play-Doh and the pictures and things like that. So you move one, you move the other, and you'd be surprised what you come up with.
And then, of course, since we're in LA, we got to talk about storyboarding.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, storyboarding. I mean, it's where you're kind of, and again, that's to the picture stuff. Although I like making little squares of ideas, points.
Oh, like a SWOT report?
Oh yeah, the 2x2 matrix. Yeah, that's a good one too. And SWOT analysis is almost a way of doing that. There are other forms
and
of
it
that.
it doesn't sound very creative when you think of a SWOT analysis, because that's the data, things like that. And it actually can be, because you want to be able to think of different ways that, what obstacles you may come up with, so things like that.
And those are, those ideas that are more accepted now in business are easier for managers to accept. So you've got the fishbone diagram, you've got process diagrams, and then you've got, as you mentioned, 2x2 matrix. So
And I do want to make an important point with this, is that all of this, no, I should say none of this would be possible without true psychological safety in the workplace. And we bring this up virtually every podcast, because it is so important, especially with working from home and hybrid, where people need to feel safe in order to share their ideas and not worry about being shut down by their colleagues.
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody's going to speak up. Why would you speak up just to get shot down? Unless, of course, you're a masochist or something like that. Who knows? Anyway.
I work with you, so.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Absolutely. So on to our second point. How do organizations kill and crush creativity? And
we're only up to point 2? Holy crap.
Well, we spent more time on point 1 because that's the important part.
There's a lot of really fun stuff.
We're like
that we did. So.
We only got a quarter of the way to go on this. We're very close to.
It's this is an important thing. Creativity is how we improve society at large.
Yeah. So the first way organizations kill and crush creativity is they don't invest in it.
Because out of fear, right?
Right. And what are the investments they need to make? They need to be able to give their people time to work on it. You need time to put your feet on the desk.
And I can't remember if it's Google or what, one of the tech companies actually, they use the 80-20 rule. They allow their people 20% just for ideation and creativity, and to kind of do their thing and thinking. Because doing is not always what's needed. People need time to think.
And I don't know if it's directly related to that or if it still exists. Google also would allow people to work like one day a month or one day a week. It was
one something
on their own idea. Had nothing to do. They could work on anything they wanted. So that was cool. Maybe why Google is as big as they are. So and then fear, as you've talked about.
Oh, fear is huge. People are victims of their own fear. And this could possibly start in childhood, depending on how they were raised and whether their parents shut off their fear, and they have a knee-jerk reaction to their own and others, even more so. They're very sensitive.
Yeah, and when the human brain has fear, when you experience fear, the first thing they grab for is getting control, some kind of control, even if it's bad control. And
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, well, and I'm going to digress here. They go into caretaking. Managers and leaders go into caretaking mode, and they start focusing on the status quo to alleviate their fears. Well, the L&D, that's Learning Development Community, of which ATD is part of it, Association for Talent Development. They were one of the first groups to get trashed. And if we need to cut costs, they're gone. Get rid of the training people. We don't need training because they're just the people that get the training are going to leave. And so the L&D community has been looking for something that would be more business substantial to prove their worth. And so a couple of people got caught on the ROI, and they were going to demonstrate the ROI of training.
Bad
and that
move.
is
Bad
such
move. Yeah.
No, they're going down the wrong path. Learning and L&D is about innovation. It's about skills that will pay off in a number of ways.
Right.
It's about giving people the time, and trying to prove ROI it's just going to create more
You
fear.
you can't put a number on creativity or innovation or any of those things, and that's a big thing with companies. How is this gonna pay off? And they don't trust anything that is innovative. So how are they supposed to use it to get anywhere if they don't trust it?
Right. And I think the only people making money on that are the people that are writing the books on that stuff, because the L&D hasn't changed. Training departments, a lot of them were trashed during the pandemic. They just got,
big time.
as soon as the incentives to keep people were gone, they cut their training costs and everything else. So anyway, and then there's one more. The big thing that we talk about, and I'll lead up to it. Assessments. Assessments are great. They're helpful. They're great guidelines. They're great for helping people discover themselves. Using them as hiring people, you just killed diversity.
Right.
If you want everybody to fit this mold, you just kill that diversity.
Yeah, and we're not talking about diversity in terms of male, female, color, or things like that.
Those help.
Yes, they do. And for me, that goes without saying. My diversity goes for hire people outside of your industry to get a different viewpoint for what you want to do.
Yeah. And our Ed Catmull.
Oh, our favorite
buddy,
author of Creativity Inc. Yeah, he has one of the best ideas for getting different viewpoints in his all company meetings when he wants to have, for lack of a better word, brainstorming. He wants to get ideas from the people who clean the offices to the CFO.
Yeah, it's great because they all see what's going on.
Yeah.
Again, the movie thing, it's like, the Breakfast Club, the janitor, I can't remember his name. He goes, I see what you do. I know who you are. I know what's in your locker. It's great.
Yeah.
So they're going to find out.
It's like when in the turn of the century, when the upstairs, downstairs, all the servants, the upper crust didn't consider them humans, and they heard everything, so they knew what to do and what not to do, and that's the same thing. If they'd actually asked them,
they might have been better off.
Correct.
Yeah, that maybe England wouldn't have fallen. The Bank of England wouldn't have fallen. No, here we go.
But we digress once again.
Yeah, and again, getting back to that fear thing,
yeah.
Along with that is that hero leadership where they've got to have all the ideas, and if it doesn't come from the executive club, it's not going to be taken care of, or we can't give credit to the people. I got on the board of an organization, and their market share, they were the largest organization and the best and the brightest, and now they're almost insignificant. It's unfortunate, and it's because they have no creativity. And to get one idea through, they would almost kill it all the time. And you know how they kill ideas.
There are 4 ways, right?
Yeah, our Dr. John Cotter.
Tell us, Jeffrey, what are the 4 ways?
Look, delay. That's the easy one. Oh, great idea. We love it. We're just not going to implement it now.
Let's put a pin in it and come back to it.
And that's really easy to do. Yeah. And that's why if that's in your culture of your company, they're going to delay everything like that. It's just you're not going to create an environment of creativity. And then the second one is fear-mongering. Oh, we can't go down that road. Back to my favorite subject. Remember all the CEOs and executives you ask, I want to work from home. Oh, no, we can't do that. Everybody will want to work from home. Why not have experimented with it? Why did it take a pandemic before we got to see the value of it? It just shows how we're still locked in. We're not in it. We're our own worst enemy.
So is that
innovation.
the necessity is the mother of invention?
Yeah. And then, so after fear, there's confusion. Oh, if it's Mars retrograde, you can't do it. It has nothing to do with anything. And then, of course, the last one is character assassination. And that's what really kills creativity. And people that
Kill the
step
messenger?
out, kill the messenger. You kill them, and you kill one messenger, and that passes the message to everybody else. Don't
Right.
step out of line. Don't those things. It's just human nature.
So if you have a messenger business, you're out of luck. So there you go.
Okay, was that?
That was good. All right. So shall we go into point 3 for purposeful
Yes,
play?
please. We've gilded the lily on this thing.
That was some lily. It's very pretty now. So
right.
we're going to split this into individuals and groups. So I'm going to handle the individuals because that's
Right.
that's where that's where I think it starts, and then it goes into the
we
the
may.
groups.
I'm sorry. We may have new listeners. Point 3 is always tips.
That's
Tips
right.
and
It
ideas.
is always it is.
It's always tips and ideas.
And
For
the
bring-
big thing for individuals which go into groups is to avoid groupthink. And this only comes about with healthy conflict skills. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to argue points without those 4 points that Jeffrey just brought up. And there is a benefit to incubation, what I mentioned before, when you're trying to solve a problem and you do other things, because the mind hates a hole. The mind hates a gap. I like that one. I hate a hole.
Yes, holes in your head.
I have some
holes
holes
in
in
your
my
head
head.
are not a good thing. Yes, of course the
And
mind hates holes.
So when the subconscious takes over, it tries to fill that hole with an answer while you're doing other things, which is why you can come up with an idea in the shower, or you're talking about something completely different and bam, hold on a second, I got to write this down. You know, there's a lot of things like that. We were saying before, when you're in a bar and just relaxing, and all of a sudden you get this epiphany: I need a napkin, and not for writing someone's number down. You know,
Absolutely.
so that's when when you're the best time for any kind of ideation or divergent thinking, especially when you're doing brainstorming, is to start individually. If you're looking for an answer to an idea or a problem, have them do that divergent thinking before they even come to the meeting, and allow for those crappy ideas,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
the crappy ideas can spur amazing ones. And you get ideas from ideas, and then let it marinate for a few days. And sometimes what I recommend to companies is take the ideas that you've come up with and just leave them all on the wall and just pass them by. Just read them. Leave them alone for a few days and put stickies over them as people come up with other ideas. So it's a long process. It's a brainstorming week as opposed to a brainstorming hour, and it's actually more productive than keeping people in a meeting for an hour when everyone's looking at their watch going, come on, I got stuff to do, because it takes two seconds to do
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
So all right.
Do you want me to handle groups?
I do.
Groups. Okay. So one of the things about the groups is you need to teach them about healthy conflict or healthy dialogue, so that they have the skill. It's a skill-based thing. You teach people how to have a good, robust discussion with different ideas and kind of that battling together in a friendly way. It really
Which is kind of
helps.
an oxymoron, and it isn't.
Well, Ray Dalio, Bridgewater Associates, he talks about radical honesty and radical transparency. And that transparency meant if you had an idea, or you thought somebody was doing something that could be done better or differently, you were required to speak up about it. And he spent his entire lifetime in that organization working on that concept. And they were one of the most successful money management companies out there. And now he's got a second book out. First one was on principles. I don't know what the second one is. I mentioned it the other day. Anyway, so you've got to have transparency. That's one of the things that really helps with
That makes sense.
creativity.
Yeah.
And show people your mistakes. Show them when you make mistakes, because mistakes are part of creativity.
Absolutely.
You're going to try things that aren't going to work. They're going to fall flat.
That's what makes improv so much fun.
And then introduce the tools, make a systemized process or a regular process of introducing tools. So, today we're going to work on, for the month of March, we're going to do brainstorming, play around with it. For April, we're going to do mind maps. So, and it takes 5-10 minutes at the beginning of a meeting. Just get people into the habit of it so that information can become knowledge. Mm-hmm. And then finally, the last thing is, and this is it's a personal thing, and you can help it in the organization. Whenever there's a problem in an organization, that's an opportunity for creative thinking. Like, okay, let's not look at this as a problem. Let's look at this as an opportunity.
Words are important.
Well, and that's one of the things.
We should do a podcast on that.
Absolutely.
Oh, wait.
Oh, we did. We did. So, Rona, any final comments?
I just want to reiterate the fact that everyone is creative, and accept that. Don't define yourself by other people's definition of it. If you come up with an idea, if you've ever had an idea, oh gosh, you're creative. And psychological safety, like Ray Dalio have, when you have that transparency, that equals safety.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
There I have it.
Excellent.
There
point.
I be. All right, you're up. What's yours?
So, well, first of all, was I less stiff?
Yes, you were. Pretty much, you got into it. It was definitely better.
Okay.
Even though, yes, we went through every single data and fact that was on our notes. You handled them much better.
Okay, good. We're working on it. It's a work in progress.
It is a work in progress. If anyone has any suggestions, we're always willing to listen.
Wait, I did that first. I want to talk about my point now.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I switched things up.
No, go ahead.
So
look at it switching things up.
I know. I just,
so proud. My baby's growing up.
Look, leaders and managers in an organization, you have an opportunity to bring new ways of thinking, new approaches. And if you can help people be creative in work and in business, it will help them in their personal life. It'll help them be creative in their personal life.
Yeah.
And it's one of the greatest contributions you can give. People spend a lot of time at work. And right now, if you want people, because of the changes and people now know they can move from company to company, you want to keep the best people, you need to feed them opportunity. And feeding them opportunity means helping them grow as quick as they can, as quick as they desire, and create that safe, psychologically safe environment for them. And on that, I'm good.
If you're good, then I'm good. So shall we figure out a creative way to end the show?
No, absolutely not. That's way too much pressure.
I was just going to say, go away. Go away, we're done.
That's such a wrong message. What if somebody signs on and
come
wasn't
back,
rewound?
go away, come back next week.
Oh, my God.
Doesn't that sound like the Wizard of
No, it sounds like Ferris Bueller. You know, what, you're still here?
You're still here.
It's over. It's time to go home.
It's time to go.
Okay, very good.
We love you. Come back. Please come back. I'm Rona Lewis.
I'm Jeffrey Hansler.
You've been listening to Biz-Souls.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Biz-Souls podcast with your hosts, Rona Lewis and Jeffrey Hansler. Did you have fun? Subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Talk to you next week.